Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today for our 30 on Thursday webinar, Raise Your Office 365 Secure Score. Just a little bit about Protiviti before we get started. We are a global consulting firm providing solutions to business problems in technology, business process, analytics, compliance, and internal audit. Our full-service enterprise content management team has helped hundreds of clients realize the value of SharePoint and Office 365. Our 30 on Thursday webinar series is a bi-weekly 30-minute webinar series where we talk all things SharePoint, Office 365, and ECM. Our next webinar will be on August 24th, where we will be talking about how to implement SharePoint taxonomy. You can register for this webinar and see our full event schedule on our website. We have a new group of offerings here at Protiviti. It's Office 365 Planning, Management, and Implementation to focus on the foundational activities required for an organization to build a stable and supportable Office 365 platform. Our team can provide any or all of the things listed on the screen here, including an Office 365 security assessment, tenant configuration, feature roadmap, and even on-demand support for Office 365. So if you're interested in this offering, you can visit our website, ecm.protiviti.com, or contact us directly at ecm@protiviti.com. Today's session is being recorded. You can access today's recording on our YouTube channel and see past webinar recordings there as well. For questions during today's presentation, please use the question window in the GoToMeeting toolbar, or you can live tweet us your questions using the hashtag 30T0365. We will save all the questions until after the presentation today. Today's presenter is Antonio Maio, SharePoint MVP here at Protiviti, and I am Julia Marple, and I will be moderating today's session. All right, Antonio, I will pass it over to you.
All right, thanks, Julia. Hi, everyone, and welcome. Let me just present my slide here. All right. So welcome to Raise Your Office 365 Secure Score. As Julia mentioned, I'm Antonio Maio. I'm a Senior Manager and Senior SharePoint Architect with Protiviti. I'm also a Microsoft Office Server and Services MVP, which means I spend a lot of time in the community speaking to folks like you about various topics related to Office 365, SharePoint, and Exchange. My contact information is here. Please do feel free to reach out if you have any questions after the presentation that we don't get to today. I'm happy to connect back and answer back. And I do maintain a fairly active blog listed there, and I'll be putting these slides for this presentation up on the blog as well. So feel free to download those and make use of those. I want to start off talking about Office 365 Secure Score with a bit of an introduction. Really, I want to explain that, you know, for a large number of organizations, large or small, that are just moving to Office 365, or even some other cloud service, the concepts of security, compliance, and risk can be really complex. They usually require learning about how these security concepts have changed and how they're now implemented in a cloud-first, mobile-friendly world. They often require working with security experts to evaluate the current state of the security for the cloud application that you're concerned about, and determining which security capabilities and features that you are and are not yet making use of. When we worked with on-premise servers in the past, things seemed almost easier in some ways because our server farms, which hosted Exchange, SharePoint, Skype for Business, and so on, they were all within our own corporate networks. They were more under our control, and we felt some level of comfort from being able to stop internet traffic at the network boundary, usually with things like firewalls or gateways. Regardless of how truly secure or not these systems in fact were, we often gained some comfort from this boundary. Now, with the advent of cloud computing and the desire to work on a whole range of mobile devices, even our own personal devices, with the desire to access our services for work from really anywhere in the world, moving to services which are hosted on servers and in data centers that are not under our control often feels like we've lost that comfort. that assurance that we're controlling the security of our critical IT services. Or it feels that we've given up the management of our security to somebody else, someone that we can't see, that we can't talk to, and that we really don't know. When in actuality, often services like Office 365 are more secure than we could have ever hoped to deploy in our own environments. Often we have more control over our services on how they're secured than we've ever had before. We often just aren't aware of the security benefits that come out of the box with Office 365, and we're not aware of the security capabilities that are available to us. Office 365 Secure Score is a security analytics tool from Microsoft that comes with your Office 365 subscription. It's a relatively new feature that was released early this year. Its purpose is really to help us understand our current security posture, help us understand which security features we're not yet using. It can help us understand the impact of rolling out specific security features to our end users and our administrators. And it'll help us understand how we can improve our security posture. It even helps us track our progress in terms of improving our security over time. So let's jump in and have a look. Now, the first thing that's important to understand, and this is with really any cloud-provided solution, is that security is a shared responsibility. This means that the cloud provider has some responsibility for securing the environment or the services that you use. In the case of Office 365, we're talking about Microsoft, of course. This also means that you, the customer, has some responsibility as well for managing security, compliance, and risk, as we've been talking about. Now, this might seem like an obvious concept, but I still get people that ask me if Office 365 will solve all of their security issues. So I think this is an important baseline concept for us all to understand. The graphic I'm showing here is from Microsoft. And where it says SaaS, it's referring to Office 365. We can see that the blocks in gray are Microsoft's responsibilities. Things like data center access, controlling the physical network, the physical hosts, the OS, the network, the application layer, and then a portion of identity and directory infrastructure. But the constants in blue, things like user account management, access management, securing the client endpoints like your laptops and mobile devices, securing access to content, authorization, permissions, enforcing governance policies. These are all the responsibility of you, the customer, and how you manage them will typically depend on the business context that you operate in. Now, this is an important concept to understand because securing your Office 365 tenant and the services and information that's hosted within it requires that you understand your responsibilities and that you understand the security capabilities Microsoft has made available to you in order to be successful at that. So Office 365 Secure Score is here to help you accomplish just that. Now, as many of you know, Office 365 provides a lot of security features and capabilities. Over the last few years, I've tried to keep a running list of these features as new security innovations and features are introduced. And today it looks something like this. And pretty soon I'm going to have to spread this across multiple slides. I'm not even sure anymore actually if I have all of the security capabilities listed here, but I think I've kept up with most of them. So I do have to say that over the last year and a half to 2 years, Microsoft has been introducing an incredible number of security capabilities and features into Office 365. The pace at which new security innovations have been introduced has been really quite incredible. Some of these are built in and they're available for every subscription and you don't have to do anything to configure them. Whereas others are available only with specific license levels, and then others require some specific security configuration. Now, we're not going to go through all of these today. We're just going to focus on one of these features, and it might seem like a small one, but as we've been saying, it's Office 365 Secure Score. Usually in this list, it's enough for me to just highlight the one we want to focus on in red, but you know, I find that this is getting a bit lost in how extensive this list is, so I'm starting to give you a rectangle as well to point out the feature that we're going to focus on. Now, the great thing about Secure Score that's a little bit different than the rest of these is that it actually helps you to understand if you should make use of many of these other security capabilities and what the possible impact is to deploying those features, both to your end users and your administrators. Now with Secure Score, you don't actually access it through your Office 365 tenant or through the Security and Compliance Center, at least not yet. You actually navigate in your web browser to securescore.office.com and you log in with your admin credentials. Now these can be either a global administrator credential or you can use one of the other service-specific admin accounts. When you do get there, the Office 365 Secure Score page will look something like this, except that your tenant's score will be shown. Users who are not assigned an admin role in the tenant will not be able to log in, so it's really not available to every user in the organization. However, an admin can actually use Secure Score to share their results with other non-admins in the company, people like executives and InfoSec teams, audit teams, compliance teams, and so on. Now, Secure Score will analyze the security posture of your Office 365 tenant, and it'll assign you a score. Think of it almost like a credit score. The analysis is based on the security features that you're currently using, the security features that are available with the licenses that you've purchased, and the actual services you're making use of, so Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive for Business, Skype for Business, and so on. So all of those signals are taken into account when determining your Secure Score. And it'll even include some of the regular activities that end users perform in the tenant in determining your Secure Score. Now, it evaluates your tenant every 24 hours when defining your score. And we can see here at the bottom of that graphic that the maximum score that you can get is 452. Now, this represents a very aggressive security posture for your environment. Typically, you want to use a security approach that's a little bit more balanced in relation to the impact to end users and administrators. It's really important to remember that implementing security will often have an impact on end users and administrators, in particular on their day-to-day work. And you want to ensure that you balance that impact with the security of your environment. Now on this page, which we'll actually take a look at a live demo of this in a minute, if you scroll a little further down, you'll see an action queue, which actually contains suggestions on how you can improve your Secure Score and ultimately reduce the security risks to your Office 365 tenant. And then on that second tab that you see there, the Score Analyzer, that's what tracks your Secure Score over time. It helps you track your progress by showing you the security features you have implemented and those that have helped to improve your Secure Score. It lets you output the current suggestions or the overall set of controls that you've implemented to a CSV file so that you can then share them with others in the organization. Okay, so let's take a closer look at this with a live demo. So I'm going to bring up a simple web browser and I'm going to navigate to securescore.office.com. Okay, and that's going to let me log in. So I'm going to log in with my administrator credentials here. These are my global administrator credentials for a test tenant that I have. Now, like any good security administrator, I'm using two-factor authentication. So I'm just going to, oh, there it is. I just received my second factor authentication, my one-time passcode. So I'll just enter that in order to log in. I'm just going to reduce the size of this browser a little bit so I can see this a little bit better. Okay, and here is Office 365 Secure Score. It's a fairly simple analytics page that's actually made up with a lot of different components. At the top here, we can see that we have a little bit of marketing around the feature. And first we're looking at the Dashboard tab. Again, there's two tabs, Dashboard and Score Analyzer. You start off with a little bit of marketing here at the top, which is, some high-level information, but one important piece is the last tab that's shown here that I want to highlight. That's the disclaimer. So here, of course, Microsoft states that the Secure Score does not express an absolute measure of how likely you are to get breached. It expresses the extent to which you've adopted controls which can offset the risk of being breached. No service can guarantee that you will not be breached, and the Secure Score should not be interpreted as a guarantee in any way. So really they're trying to say that the score given here and working with this score to improve your security is not going to guarantee you won't be breached, but it certainly is a good place to start and it certainly will help. So let's scroll down just a little bit. Now we can see our secure score here is 53 in my little test tenant here. Now that does seem a little bit low, and we can see the maximum score that I could achieve here is 364, just given where I've set my target. You can almost look at this as a fraction. I'm currently at 53 out of a possible 364. We've got a nice little pie graphic here that shows me where I'm at. It's also showing me the results for yesterday. As you can see, as mentioned, this is evaluated once per day. Now moving over to the side here, what's new? You are given some news about new features that have currently been released, and this is updated on a regular basis. So you can see here, check out our new ignore action and third-party attribution feature. Check out enable client rules forwarding block. These are a couple of great new features that were recently added. The second one there, enable client rules forwarding block, that allows you to have secure score evaluated against a top-level rule in Office 365 for email, where you can block any email rules that will forward mail outside of the company, which is a common phishing attack, or the result of a common phishing attack. So that's a great new feature that now gets incorporated into Office 365 Secure Score. That was literally just released last week, I believe, on August 1st. Moving down a little bit further here under risk assessment. So this is by no means a full risk assessment, but it's a very simple one to start. It shows me that this current tenant, which again, I keep the score low intentionally so I can show some of the recommended actions below. It shows me it's currently at risk of an account breach, elevation of privileges, or data exfiltration, which means extracting data from my tenant. On any of these, I can click on them to get more information about that possible attack. Now this gives me some really useful information on each of these, on how the attack might be mounted, on how my company might experience this attack, and often this information is useful for sharing with our management in order to get buy-in to implement some actions that help reduce the risk of these breaches. So the information here is very useful for, it's very useful for educating not only us, the administrators that access this, but also other people in our organization who approve our budgets or have to approve actions that will be taken to improve security. Now, if we move down a little bit further here, we get our target score. And we can see right now I have my target set at 334, which is a balanced approach. Again, balancing security against the impact to end users and administrators. Now we can see currently with trying to get to that score and where my current score is at, it has 25 actions recommended for me. And we'll look at those in just a minute down in the action queue. But I can increase this, and dynamically the number of actions increases that are recommended. We can see that both up here and down here. And even the scroll bar here, as I increase this, we can see that the scroll bar gets longer and longer so that there's more for me to read down below. Now again, if I move to 452, the maximum possible score, that's a very aggressive stance, and to achieve that requires the implementation of many security capabilities that are built into Office 365. And often that will have a significant impact on how your users and your administrators work day to day and week to week. If I move down to the lowest possible score of 53, which is basic, which is kind of where I'm currently at, there's no actions that I would need to implement. I'm there now. Again, I'd prefer a much more balanced approach of around 334. Now, if we move down a little bit further here and just to the right, we can see this little section of compare your score. This actually compares your current score to the average across a large number or all Office 365 tenants. We can see the average right now is extremely low, 33. And it's actually been that way for a number of months that I've been monitoring this. And really that tells me that a lot of organizations that are in Office 365 are either not yet taking advantage of the security features that are available to them, very likely because they're not aware of them, or perhaps they just haven't gotten there yet in their migration. Implementing these security features does take time, both to understand the features, to understand the impact to your end users, and then to roll it out to your end users. Often it can require some form of training for end users or building small training decks, training videos, a real program to roll these out so as end users feel that impact of a new security feature being implemented, they know what to do with it. So, I often recommend to clients that if you've got a roadmap of moving to Office 365 and you're taking on services, in an appropriate, well-planned manner, to build along with that a security roadmap that lets you implement these features in a well-planned out way. So again, that's extremely low. But let's move over to the action queue. So the action queue here right now, in order to get to 334, is showing me 25 actions that I can implement. And we can take a look at these. These are all listed here. I can actually say show me all of them, which will give me, a larger number of actions here. And what that did was it actually moved my target up to 452, the maximum number. So I'm going to move that back down to 334. And let's take a look at a few of these actions. Now the actions here are actually listed in order of their impact to your secure score and the impact to end users. So they're putting in, at the top of the list, the items that will have the greatest impact to your secure score and the least impact to your end users. So again, trying to provide you a balanced approach. So the first one here is enable multi-factor authentication for global admins, MFA. The second one is enable multi-factor authentication for all users. Now you'll have noticed that when I logged in, it asked me for that second factor authentication, but it's still recommending it here. And that's because I just implemented multi-factor authentication on this tenant yesterday, and the tenant hasn't yet refreshed my secure score in order to take that into account. And once it does, my secure score should increase. So if I open this up, we can actually get some useful information about this recommendation. Right? If we look at this here, it tells me you should enable MFA, multi-factor authentication, for all your admin accounts, because a breach of any of those accounts can lead to a breach of any of your data. We found that you had 2 admins out of 2 that did not have MFA enabled. So it'll actually, with other tenants, I've implemented MFA for a subset of the global admin accounts, and you'll get a partial score here. So it does take that into account. It's not an all or nothing thing. If you enable MFA for those 2 admin accounts, your score will go up by 50 points. So I should see this jump up quite a bit. Your impact to end users for this is low, and the implementation cost of this is low because I have MFA already included with my Office 365 license. It can allow me to see, what threats are going to be prevented or less likely to occur, let's say not prevented, but less likely to occur based on implementing this. So an account breach, elevation of privilege. So again, if I click on those, I get information about those threats. And then I've got these 3 buttons here that are very useful. So the first one, third party, we mentioned earlier. For some organizations, they implement these security mechanisms using a third-party solution. So you can roll out a third-party multi-factor authentication solution to Office 365 or in conjunction with it within your organization. And if I've done that, I can click on third-party, and it'll actually give me those points and take that into account in my secure score. I could choose to ignore it if this item doesn't actually make sense for my organization. Or I can say learn more. Now if I learn more, if I click on learn more, it actually gives me more information about what am I about to change and how is this going to affect my end users. And if I click on launch now, that's actually going to take me to the page where I can configure multi-factor authentication for my tenant. And with all of these, we have some great detail and information about this. So if I implement it for all my users, it'll actually tell me how many users out of my total number of users currently have multi-factor authentication or not. If I move down a little further, that great new capability of blocking email rules that forward email outside of the company, that's this one here. It actually take me to where it'll actually configure that for me if I go learn more. Gives me quite a bit of information, and I can actually apply that feature immediately by clicking that button. Some of the features, like enabling audit data recording, I actually do have that enabled in my tenant, but that's not scored. It's not in fact evaluating all of the possible features it recommends. And then another great one I want to quickly highlight, enable mailbox auditing for all of your users. So here it'll actually evaluate in Exchange Online how many users have I enabled mailbox auditing for. And again, there's a very small tenant. It says we found that you had 0 mailboxes out of 1. There's only 1 user account here with auditing enabled. If I go to learn more and actually choose launch now for this one, it'll actually take me to PowerShell available on GitHub that I can run to actually enable that for my users. So again, very useful direction on how to actually implement that change. Some of these others here, they suggest reviewing reports on a weekly basis. So review sign-ins from unknown sources, report weekly. And there's a number of those here. Review sign-ins from multiple geographies, report weekly. If I click on Learn More Now for this one here and then Review, it'll actually take me to that report. Now that report is available in the Azure tenant that's sitting behind my Office 365 tenant. So it'll actually automatically log me into Azure and bring me to that report as it's doing here. Now many of these reports here still take you to the classic Azure portal. Hopefully soon this moves to the new Azure Resource Manager. But I'm just going to let that come up here, and I'll just move back so we can look at Secure Score a bit more. And we have those recommendations and that level of detail, user impact. Some of these have admin impact, implementation cost for all of these here. And if I go down to a lot of these are review reports and so on, right? It's got some related to Skype, moderate user impact, and so on. Now, if I move back to the score analyzer, the second tab here, here's what it'll show me on a day-by-day basis what my secure score was. And you can see here on this tenant, I haven't really done a lot to change that score. But I can at any point click on a particular day, see what my score was on that day, and it'll actually show me the score on that day and what actions I had implemented on that day. So I can go all the way back, July 14th, for example. I can run reports on this, and for most tenants, if you're active in enabling security features as you should be, this graph will jump all around here, and you can view where your score was at any of these days. You can output a report for the last 7 days, 30 days, 3 months, or customize that. And again, to output this, because if we scroll down a little further, we see the actions that I've completed and what that did for my score, the actions that I haven't yet completed. I can output all of the results here to a PDF file, a CSV file, or I can output the entire control list to a CSV file. And that gets downloaded pretty quickly, and I can easily open that in Excel, format it nicely. We've got a lot of great data here, and I can share it with others in the organization. So just quickly going back to my last slide here for some final thoughts. As we've said earlier, security is still your responsibility even after you move to a cloud-based solution. That's not just for Office 365, that's any cloud or SaaS-based solution. It's important you understand those responsibilities and the capabilities that the cloud provider has made available to you. We've seen Office 365 Secure Score is just one of those capabilities within Office 365 that helps you to improve your security. It helps you figure out what's my current security posture, what do I want my security target to be, and what do I need to do to achieve that security target. And it even helps you track your progress there over time, allowing you to report that to others within the organization. It shows you how you've improved your security score and what you did to get there. So I think we'll end that there. I know we're almost at time, but I just want to thank everybody for attending and just ask if anybody has any questions.
Thanks, Antonio. If you have any questions, just insert them in the question window. We did have a question about the recording. The recording of today's session will be on our YouTube channel, and we will be sending that link to all the attendees today. I think you mentioned this, but someone has a question about how often is my score refreshed?
So your score is refreshed once every 24 hours. However, I have seen it sometimes take up to 48 hours for Secure Score to really reflect a change that I've made in some of the other tenants that I've worked within. So I would say at least 24 hours, but don't be surprised if it takes 2 days for a change to show up.
Okay, and what version of Office 365 do I have to have for this feature?
Okay, so Secure Score is available with all subscription levels for the Office 365 Business Premium and Enterprise license level. So if you have Business Premium or Enterprise licenses, it's available for all of the license levels for each of those offerings.
Okay, great. I think that is all the questions we have for today, and we are ending right on time at the top of the hour. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Antonio, for the great presentation.
Thanks, everyone. And again, I'll post these to my blog after the presentation later today.
All right, great. And we will be sending out the recording link as well. Have a great day, everyone, and we will see you in 2 weeks.